Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and the founder of what we now call analytical psychology. Born in 1875, he began his career working closely with Sigmund Freud, the pioneer of psychoanalysis. Over time, however, Jung charted his own course. While Freud emphasized that much of human behavior stems from hidden desires, particularly those related to sexuality, Jung saw the mind as far more complex. He argued that to truly understand ourselves, we must examine the structure of the mind, which he referred to as the psyche. At the surface lies the conscious mind, encompassing your daily thoughts, feelings, and decisions. Beneath that is a personal unconscious, containing memories, emotions, and experiences that have been forgotten or repressed, but continue to influence your life. Even deeper is what Jung called the collective unconscious. Unlike the personal unconscious, it is not shaped by individual experiences, but by the shared history of humanity. Within it exist universal patterns known as archetypes. Figures such as a hero, the mother, the wise old man, and the trickster. These archetypes appear in myths and stories across cultures, and Jung believed they also exist within each person as latent possibilities. Jung also explored the concept of the persona, the mask we present to the world. It reflects how we behave in public, at work, or around those we wish to impress. Beneath this mask, however, lies something often hidden, something we tend to avoid. He called this the shadow, the darker aspect of ourselves that society teaches us to suppress. These might include anger, fear, jealousy, or even traits like ambition and desire. Many of these qualities were pushed aside during childhood, not because they were inherently wrong, but because the world deemed them unacceptable. Suppressing them does not make them vanish. They remain within us, and if left unexamined, they can influence our lives from the background. Jung argued that personal growth requires confronting this shadow, understanding it, accepting it, and gradually integrating it into our conscious awareness. This process, which he termed shadow work, is not about striving for perfection, but about achieving wholeness. At the core of this process is what Jung called the self, the complete representation of who you are, encompassing both conscious and unconscious elements. The journey toward realizing this true self, he described as individuation. In this video, we'll guide you through a step-by-step approach to shadow work, helping you confront your darker side, not to fix yourself, but to truly understand who you are. Step 1. Identify your shadow. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." As we've discussed, the shadow represents the parts of yourself you often ignore or deny. This includes traits you feel ashamed of, behaviors you prefer to keep hidden, or aspects that society taught you were wrong or bad. These might be anger, jealousy, selfishness, or insecurity. However, the shadow isn't only composed of negative traits. It can also encompass qualities like sensitivity, creativity, or a deep need for love, parts of yourself that may have been suppressed during childhood. Hiding these aspects doesn't make them vanish. They simply retreat into the unconscious and influence your life in subtle ways. You might notice this through overreactions, being easily triggered, harsh judgment of others, or feeling defensive without a clear cause. One of the most common ways the shadow expresses itself is through projection. This occurs when we recognize in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. For instance, if someone showing this irritates you, it could reflect your own buried desire for attention or recognition. Similarly, if another person's laziness frustrates you, it might reveal your fear of being unproductive or idle. A practical way to identify your shadow is to notice what triggers or annoys you in others. Ask yourself, why am I judging this person? And is there a part of me that resembles this, even if I'm unwilling to admit it? Another useful exercise is to imagine a newspaper headline reading, "The worst things about you." What would it say? Perhaps it labels you as selfish, insecure, fake, lazy, or needy. Whatever comes up is likely part of your shadow. The more it disturbs you, the more crucial it is to examine it honestly. Jung also suggested that dreams can reveal aspects of the shadow. Since it resides in the unconscious, the shadow often appears in dreams symbolically, as a stranger, a dark figure, a monster, or something unfamiliar. If a dream feels intense or unsettling, it may be signaling something important about yourself. Reflect on it by asking, what is this image showing me about who I am? A simple yet effective way to begin shadow work is by keeping a shadow journal. Each day, note moments when you felt reactive, times you experienced hurt, jealousy, anger, or judgment. Then reflect, what happened? What emotions did I experience? Why did this situation affect me so strongly? Which part of myself might be involved? Initially, your reflections may feel unclear or superficial, but over time, writing consistently brings clarity. You begin to recognize patterns and understand which aspect of yourself you've been suppressing. Gradually, these parts lose their intimidating power. Once you can observe your shadow clearly, you can engage with it rather than avoid it. Shadow work is not about fixing yourself. It's about truly understanding yourself, and that's where authentic growth begins. Step 2. Accept your dark side without judgment. As Carl Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. After identifying hidden parts of yourself, whether jealousy, anger, pride, or insecurity, the next step is to accept them fully, without criticism or avoidance. This is where many people get stuck. From a young age, we are taught to show only our good side. Be polite, be confident, be kind, don't get angry, don't be selfish, never show weakness. These messages come from everywhere: family, friends, school, religion, society, and more. It's no wonder that when we notice something dark within ourselves, our instinct is often to hide it or push it away. Jung, however, offered a different perspective. He believed that true healing doesn't come from avoiding the shadow. It begins by facing it honestly. Those uncomfortable aspects, the traits we were taught to suppress, remain part of us. Without acknowledging them, we will always feel incomplete. To become whole, we must stop pretending our darkness doesn't exist. Feeling jealousy, anger, or neediness is not a sign of being a bad person. It's a sign of being human. Jung emphasized that the shadow is not our enemy. It is a part of us waiting to be recognized, heard, and understood. The question then becomes, how do we start accepting it? One gentle approach is to write a letter to your shadow. Write as if you were speaking to a close friend, with kindness and without judgment. You might say something like, I see you. I know you feel insecure at times. I know you get angry. I know you want to be noticed. And that's okay. You don't have to hide anymore. Be honest in your words. Don't try to fix anything or make it sound perfect. Just let it flow and express the truth. When you're finished, take a moment to read your words, not with shame, but with compassion. This exercise isn't about fixing your shadow. It's about understanding it. That understanding creates the space for real healing. It may seem like a small step in the journey, but accepting your shadow is actually one of the most challenging and most powerful parts of the process. The moment you meet these hidden parts of yourself without judgment, they begin to lose their control over you. There's nothing left to hide, nothing left to fear. In that space, you can finally be yourself, fully, freely, and without guilt. Step 3. Trace the origin. Carl Jung said, our shadow sides are born the moment we are told that certain parts of us are not okay. Both Jung and Freud emphasize the importance of childhood. It's the stage where we begin to understand the world, and, more importantly, ourselves. Freud famously stated, the child is father of the man, highlighting that the person we become is shaped by who we were as children. They also believe that many adult struggles originate in these early years. Fears we carry and parts of ourselves we hide often begin in childhood. This is why exploring your shadow, the hidden or rejected aspects of yourself, requires looking back at your past. Consider your own experiences. Perhaps as a child, you were told not to cry, so you learned to suppress your emotions. Maybe someone mocked you for being too quiet, too emotional, or too playful, leading you to hide those traits to avoid pain. This is how the shadow is formed. You didn't do anything wrong. You were simply trying to protect yourself. Over time, however, this habit of hiding becomes ingrained. As you grow older, the hidden part doesn't disappear. It quietly influences your choices, thoughts, and self-perception. Jung believed that true healing begins when we stop hiding these aspects and start accepting them. To do this, we need to trace them back to their origin. Gently ask yourself, what was the first time I felt this part of me wasn't acceptable? Who told me that? How did I feel at the time? And perhaps most importantly, why did I decide to hide it? These questions can feel heavy, but they help you understand your personal story. Once you gain that clarity, you can begin to change it. When you see why you've been hiding certain parts of yourself, you also realize that continuing to hide is a choice, not a necessity. This awareness brings a sense of lightness. You start to trust yourself more and gradually become closer to your true self, not just the version the world expected you to be. If you're on a healing journey, begin by looking back, but do so gently. Be honest. The story of your shadow didn't start today, but the story of your freedom can. Step 4. Have a dialogue with your shadow. Jung once wrote, "To confront a person with their shadow is to show them their own light." Now that you've started recognizing and accepting your shadow, the next step is to engage with it directly. Jung called this process active imagination, a practice where you consciously communicate with your unconscious mind, especially with the parts that are usually silent. The shadow isn't just a hidden or dark corner of your personality. According to Jung, it has something to express. It wants to be acknowledged. It wants to be seen. Most importantly, the shadow wants to be understood. Consider this. The anger you've been suppressing may actually be trying to protect you. The jealousy you feel could be pointing to what you secretly desire. Even your fear, though uncomfortable, might be attempting to keep you safe. These emotions aren't always working against you. They could be trying to guide or help you. The only way to truly understand them is to listen rather than push them away. So, how do you start? Find a quiet space. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes and take a few slow, deep breaths. Then, imagine your shadow as a person. It doesn't need to look like you. It could appear as a stranger, a child, an animal, or even as a vague form. Whatever arises, allow it without overthinking. Approach this image gently, as you would an old friend. Ask simple questions like, "What do you try to protect me from?" Or, "What do you want to understand?" Then listen patiently. The shadow may respond with words, or may communicate through a feeling, a memory, or a mental image. Whatever arises, simply observe it. For instance, one man imagined his shadow as a tired, bitter version of himself sitting alone in a dark room. When he asked what it wanted, he suddenly felt a wave of sadness. In that quiet moment, he realized that his anger wasn't truly about others. It reflected how long he had been neglecting his own needs. This insight didn't come from thinking. It came from listening. If nothing happens immediately, that's perfectly fine. The inner world doesn't always respond on demand. Be patient. Sit quietly, breathe, and remain open. Most importantly, avoid judging whatever comes up. Don't try to fix your shadow, and don't argue with it. Simply allow it space to exist and speak. The more you listen without fear or shame, the more your shadow begins to trust you. What it reveals may surprise you. It could highlight where you are still hurting, explain recurring patterns in your life, or simply ask to be acknowledged. This step is essential in the process of shadow work. It's not enough to simply know that your shadow exists. The key is to understand how it feels, what it needs, and why it has been hidden for so long. When you can sit with your shadow and genuinely listen, you begin to cultivate a more honest, compassionate, and complete relationship with yourself. True healing starts here, not by resisting your shadow, but by giving it a voice. Step 5. Integrate your shadow. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This final step is perhaps the most important in your inner journey, learning to live with the parts of yourself you've hidden. Integration isn't just about noticing or accepting these parts. It's about finding a way to channel their energy constructively and consciously. Your shadow is like a part of you that was exiled long ago. Perhaps it was too loud, too emotional, or too bold for others to accept. Yet, that part still carries energy you can use. Once you bring it into the light, it can become one of your greatest strengths. Take anger, for example. You may have been taught that anger is wrong and buried it, but anger can signal what truly matters to you. Instead of lashing out or turning it inward, you can channel it to speak your truth, set boundaries, or stand up for yourself or others. In this way, anger becomes strength. Or consider jealousy. You might push away, but jealousy can reveal what you deeply desire: recognition, growth, or to be valued. Rather than staying stuck in envy, you can use that energy to take action, move forward, and pursue what truly matters to you. Jung believed that life becomes richer when we stop hiding parts of ourselves. By removing the mask and embracing both light and dark aspects of who we are, we live more fully. There's no shame in being human. Perhaps you avoid conflict. A small first step could be calmly saying, "I see it differently," during a conversation. You're not arguing, just being honest. It may feel unusual at first, but that's okay. What matters is that your quiet inner voice is finally being heard. Or maybe you've always played it safe, yet there's a bold side of you waiting to be expressed. Try sharing something you've created. Ask for what you need. Or explore something new. That boldness isn't wrong. It simply needs your permission to emerge. If your shadow includes tendencies like being manipulative, it doesn't make you a bad person. It means you can learn to channel that insight more constructively, becoming more emotionally aware or handling difficult conversations with care. Similarly, if you've always felt a strong urge to lead, that isn't a flaw. You can still lead, with heart rather than ego, with care rather than control. That same energy, when used thoughtfully, becomes a gift. The goal isn't to act out your shadow recklessly, but to work with it gradually and consciously. This is what integration means. Not just understanding your shadow in your mind, but finding safe and positive ways to let it express itself in your life. You don't become whole by becoming someone else. You become whole by embracing more of who you truly are. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our full Philosophies for Life playlist. For more videos to help you achieve success and happiness through meaningful philosophical insights, don't forget to subscribe.